The audio commentary. It's a dying art form, but here at One Track Mind, I, your wonky yet affable host Ryan Luis Rodriguez, analyze film through the prism of these embryonic forms of podcasting, one audio commentary at a time. Masterpieces, crapster pieces, live action, animation, cult classics, films literally no one has ever heard of. No track is too small, and no track is too big. Join me and my guests from the entertainment world as we keep these features alive every other Tuesday. Hey, who else is going to discuss Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey one week and Citizen Kane the next? Us, that's who. Sure, you have to put up with my voice, but there's a certain give and take in this industry. That's One Track Mind, part of the Someone's Favorite Productions family, and available wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, my name is Kevin Tudor, and I'm one of the three hosts of Almost Major, a film podcast dissecting many major indie studios and the films they release. Every week, myself, Charlie Nash, and Bryden Doyle discuss overlooked, forgotten, or bona fide classic indie films via studio-specific miniseries. We've previously covered numerous films from Artisan Entertainment, Lionsgate Films, and New Line Cinema. Titles including The Blair Witch Project, American Psycho, Dogville, But I'm a Cheerleader, Saw, Requiem for a Dream, and Ringmaster, you know, the Jerry Springer film. Anyways, we have a fun time every week and we hope you will join us. Subscribe to Almost Major wherever you get your podcasts. Now proudly a part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Cambridge and Rashawn is a Weirding Way Media podcast. Mikuroman.
Hello and welcome to Cambridge and Washawn, a podcast by two weird guys about the weird things that they like. I'm Ronnie, otherwise known as Skelevator on YouTube, and this is my co-host,
Mark Bigley, the host of Wake Up Heavy.
And we've got some weird obsessions to talk about today, and I'm excited. This is something, I'm not going to say anything about what I chose yet, because I definitely want to hear what you've chosen first, but I'm really excited to dive into this territory. So what'd you pick, Mark?
Well, I had something that I shared with you that I picked, but I'm going to spend the next 25 minutes talking about a major plastic rock ball update.
Get a rock ball free, get a free rock ball.
Oh, 25 minutes. All right.
No, I'm just kidding.
I've got my coffee, so I'm ready.
The sound you just heard is our 10 listeners shutting off the podcast.
Exactly. We're up to 10. That's fantastic.
I don't know how many. I have no way to track that. Actually, there are probably a couple ways. But anyway, no, I'm just joking. I am not talking about that today. I'm diving into action figure territory, which I think I've only done once before with the Tomlin Cyclops. Haven't gotten into the big hitters yet, but this is sort of a minor league player for me, and it's got a great story. So I'm going to get into the story of these figures first, and then I'll talk about my childhood with them.
I gotta say, I'm excited because you sent me images and I was like, I've seen these before, but I know nothing about this particular line. And so I'm really excited to find out.
It was a big hit, but short-lived. This is not unlike Transformers or Shogun Warriors in how they made it to the States, coming from another country. Things that Mattel or Hasbro or whoever brought here that are, well, Transformers are still very popular. Shogun Warriors not so much, but Super 7 has put out some jumbo figures over the years. So this is like that, but even more interesting to me because it actually starts here in the States. So here's the history, which I think I discovered maybe 10 or so years ago and thought was just extremely fascinating. In 1963, Stan Weston, not Stan Winston, although that would be really cool.
Yeah.
Stan Weston created a quote-unquote doll for boys, and I'm using that term on purpose to piss people off.
Did you see anything? No, sir. I didn't see you playing with your dolls again. Good!
They're not dolls, they're action figures.
They're totally dolls.
Using a 12-inch figure dressed in military clothing, he sold the idea to Hasbro for $100,000, which roughly translates to almost $1 million in 2023. Woo! And America's movable fighting man was born. G.I. Joe, as he would soon be known, was licensed around the world, most notably, maybe for me, just because I'm familiar with these, in the UK as Action Man from Palitoy.
Oh, yeah.
And Palitoy, they distributed a lot of Mego stuff, and I think they might have had the Star Wars line in the UK. I could be wrong about that, too, but they were pretty big in the UK, and I think in Canada. And in Japan, it was marketed as Combat Joe by Takara, or Takara, as most Westerners call it.
Takara.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I hear online all the time.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's closer to Takara, and I'm probably still not pronouncing it correctly, so I'll put in a little clip if I can find one of someone saying it correctly here.
Takara.
Those Combat Joes, their head sculpts are like a million times better than G.I. Joe. G.I. Joe always had a weird face to me. The eyes are strange.
Yep.
Kind of droopy, turned down eyes.
Sad.
Yeah, sad. They look off. Anyway, that was early 70s for the Combat Joe line, and they had 4 or so figures that were WW2 based. Mm-hmm. So they had a German soldier, American soldiers, and a Japanese soldier, I think. I guess the military figures didn't prove very popular in Japan, probably for good reason.
Mm-hmm.
They took those Combat Joe molds and created a translucent body and inserted these chrome-plated metallic parts inside, robot or computer parts, and called it Henshin Cyborg, which means transforming cyborg. So they had all these inner workings, these guts inside, and a little robotic head, so you could actually pull the translucent head off, and there'd be this tiny little robot head with glowing eyes. They just used the same molds, but they were manufactured slightly differently because you could pull off the arms and legs and add all these attachments to them. For the legs and the feet, you could put on one of them as a little flying saucer type disc that rolled, and another one looked like spacey roller skates, and the arm attachments you could put all missile launchers and all this stuff on them. That was 12 inches, like a G.I. Joe figure, and then they made a smaller one that was supposed to be a boy called Shonen Cyborg. The size of those was prohibitive, and I think this is kind of the same thing for G.I. Joe. Plus, in 73, we had the oil crisis, and like you and I have mentioned, I think in the past, briefly, these things are petroleum-based. The plastics that toys are made out of are petroleum-based. And so they decided to shrink the figure down to a 3 3/4 inch size, and the Mikuroman line was born.
Oh, yeah.
Mikuroman!
They pretty much copied the idea of the Henshin Cyborg in that the first versions of these were translucent bodies, and instead of inner workings, they had little chest plates that kind of replicated that idea that they were robotic in nature, and they would have little chrome heads. I believe the first one was just called Mikuroman. From my lot of research, just looking at pictures online, most of them came in 4 versions, so there would be 4 different colors, and they would have a designation like M101 on through to M104. and they'd all have names. They'd all have the same first letter starting their names. This obviously was cheaper to produce, but it also meant that they could make sets at a cheaper cost as well. Because if you're making a set for a 12-inch figure, it's going to be gigantic, or even just vehicles. Like, for Masters of the Universe, which are half that size, like 6-inch figures, those play sets are huge. So you're talking about, for G.I. Joe or even for Mego, large scale sets. So these didn't require that.
Right.
So because of that crisis and because of people not being able to afford huge toys and huge sets, they shrunk it down and could make sets and vehicles much cheaper. It was very popular in Japan. And in 1976, Marty Abrams, the president of Mego.
Good old Marty.
Yeah, good old Marty. You've probably seen it. I think that's the first episode of The Toys That Made Us. It's in that first season. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that guy.
Yeah, he's a little strange. He's got an interesting personality, and it's hard to tell where his motivations are. I think that's the interesting aspect of him.
I don't know that he puts himself just on his own in such a great light. But anyway, so Marty Abrams was on a trip to Japan and saw this line of Mikuroman figures that Takara was making and decided to license the product for America. And thus was born Micronauts.
For children with imagination, the world of the Micronauts. Spacemen, robots, vehicles, some with magnets, some with batteries, and all with interchangeable parts, so your child can create dozens of different toys. And when Micronauts start a child's imagination working, he can create just about anything. Toys that climb, toys that spin, toys that float, toys that stimulate young minds.
Look what I made.
Micronauts by Mego.
Are you a film fan who loves the ultimate home video experience? Look no further than The Disconnected. Your host, Ryan Verrill, is your go-to source for the latest and most accurate information on home video releases, exclusive interviews with industry insiders and filmmakers, and has established a thriving community where every film and physical media enthusiast feels welcome. From hidden gems to blockbuster hits, The Disconnected brings you insider knowledge and a welcoming space to share your love of cinema. Watch every Thursday night at 9:30 Eastern, 6:30 Pacific for the live announcements show, and follow The Disconnected on social media to stay updated. Subscribe to The Disconnected on YouTube or on the podcast provider of your choice, and dive into a world where every movie night is an adventure.
I'm a little fuzzy or hazy on the timeline here. A lot of things I read said they didn't start in America until 77, but looking at the dates listed, on things like Wikipedia, so take that with a grain of salt, it had a lot of them, the first line of Micronauts being released in 76, which means that he would have had to have been over there at least early 76, if not 75. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because there's an apocryphal story that during this trip to Japan, a young George Lucas and 20th Century Fox were shopping around to all of the toy makers their line or proposed line for figures based on this little movie that he had made. Because Abrams was gone when they went to Mego, there was no one there to look at it or make a decision or whatever. So they went on to the next toy company. I've heard that a lot. I've heard that was part of their downfall as far as Mego goes, that they didn't get that license. I don't think so. I think the downfall really was just that he was evading taxes and went into bankruptcy and the place shut down. And I also am not sure that they would have been shopping around the Star Wars figures that early. It may have been in 76, but it probably would have been later. I know that the movie was supposed to come out December of 76, and they missed that because of trying to edit it into a comprehensible story. And that's a whole other thing. But I don't know if I buy into that. Obviously, Mego did not get the Star Wars license. I don't think that was their downfall. So they basically just used the same early figures that Takara had already created. Their Mikuroman figure became the time traveler here, just a basic figure. Nothing came with it except this little peg that you would put in its back to fit it onto vehicles, because if it didn't have something to attach it, the figures would just fly out.
Right.
So they all come with a little, I think, 5mm hole in the back and this little elbow-like plug. As Takara would release things, they would get that figure and Americanize it. They had, I don't know, like 4 or 5 figures probably to start. And then they brought the vehicles over too. I don't think they brought any of the sets over. I believe Mego made their own sets for the toys. The vehicles and figures for the most part were the same for at least a year or so. And then I think Mego started producing them themselves in Hong Kong. I know the answer to it, but it always surprises me in these stories of bringing these toys over. Why don't people just import these things? I mean, I guess it's just the import cost alone that prohibits that.
Right.
It makes me think of foreign movies. You know, there's this successful foreign movie, and then America has to leapfrog on it and make their own version. I understand that even more because most people, unfortunately, aren't going to go see a movie that they have to read subtitles for, which is stupid, in my opinion.
We haven't let go of this archaic idea that the actors need to be speaking English. I think there's popular subtitled shows on Netflix enough to equal the amount of English-speaking shows. I just think the movie companies are stuck on this idea that they've got to remake a thing with starring Naomi Watts and, you know, somebody that's recognizable. Probably that's the same sort of stinted mindset that applies to the toy making.
Well, you know, and stuff has to be geared toward us. That's the American mindset, really.
The American way.
I'm sure that a lot of those shows that you're mentioning, and I watch many of those, but I guarantee you that most people are choosing the option of having it dubbed rather than subtitled, which Netflix allows you to do on most shows.
I haven't done that yet, but I imagine that must be funny.
They're not very good. So we got quite a few of the figures from over there, the same figures. Then they took unrelated figures that I believe were still made by Takara and forced those into the Micronauts line. Most of them are plastic, but a number of them are die-cast metal or die-cast and plastic. But they introduced these 2 larger figures that were, I want to say that they were all die-cast, and they had magnetic points, so you could remove the arms and legs and head and swap them out and change them around. And there was a bad figure called Baron Karza, and then good figure, I think it was called Force Commander, and they came with horses, and you could take the head of the horse off and put the bodies of the figure on there, so it was kind of like a centaur.
Oh, that's so cool.
They didn't really match the rest of the Micronauts, but whatever. Mego created some of their own figures called the Insectoids, which were weird-looking insecty creatures that looked nothing like the other figures, and I never had any of those. And when I look at it now, it's like those aren't in place with the rest of the line at all. I guess instead of starting a whole nother line, you might as well just insert them into one that you have. The story, I may get some of this wrong. I think for Mikuroman, they were represented as 2 scale. So they were actually supposed to be 3 3/4 inch.
Oh.
That's why it was called Mikuroman.
That makes sense.
In America, they took it a step further, and I think this started with the comic book, which Marvel licensed. They had them as microscopic. Figures weren't actually to scale, they were oversized, so they were supposed to be infinitesimal. You can only see with a microscope, and lived in this alternate world. And when they got forced into our world, they upscaled, but they only upscaled to 3 3/4 inch scale. You know, it's kind of a little bit convoluted.
I kind of love that. That's fantastic.
That makes sense in a way, I guess. So they're still to scale as 3 3/4 inch figures. For me, when I was a kid, I know for sure I had a time traveler, so the basic little figure. And I believe I had him in orange, which I have replaced, I think back in 2016. One of the things that I would search for online, and they were much more affordable to get then, especially loose. That was probably $15 or something. They're very delicate. I mean, this little guy is super skinny. The joints always break. I think I had him sitting on a shelf and he fell off, and I may have reattached the arm because it doesn't move anymore. If you can find them with their unbroken feet and hands, you consider yourself lucky, and the chrome is usually rubbed off of most. This one's actually in really good shape now that I look at him.
Yeah.
The chrome is all there. I don't think somebody re-chromed this, but it's possible. Looks factory made. So I got that little guy, and then I may have gotten him because of this, or shortly thereafter, Hasbro, who has the license now, released a special set for Comic-Con in 2016.
I think I remember seeing that.
Came in this huge box.
Oh, yeah.
The Interchangeable World of the Micronauts Classic Collection, and it came with 3 figures in this big box, and I forget the artist's name. I'll have my chatbot insert that. Famous either comic illustrator or toy packaging illustrator. Instead of employing the AI chatbot, this is Mark breaking in to make this correction and or addition. The artist was Ken Kelly, and this is important because he was the original artist for the Mego Micronauts line. He was also well known for his album artwork, including covers for Kiss and numerous other hard rock acts. He depicted Conan the Barbarian and Tarzan in print, and was one of the cover artists for horror magazines such as Creepy and Eerie. He was Frank Frazetta's nephew, his wife's nephew, and unfortunately he passed away in June of 2022. So it came with Pharoid, which is another one of the figures I had as a kid. I had the orange Pharoid. This comes with a blue one. Galactic Warrior, and Orbital Defender, although I don't think that was his name originally.
Orbital Defender is amazing.
Comes with this little hood. He's got swords and guns and these little things that attach on his legs and arms. Pharoid comes in a sarcophagus, which I absolutely love.
That's so cool.
Little wing things on his legs that he can hold and look like some kind of phaser or something. Comes in this case. And I definitely remember having the orange one. And then because of that, so Cleo would have been, this was 7 years ago, so she would have been 9. On Amazon, they still had, Takara re-released Microman stuff over the years. And in the late 90s and the early 2000s and later 2000s. And I believe this is from 99 or maybe early 2000s. It's basically the same kind of figure, but it's the only female figure they made, and she's in a little Statue of Liberty case.
Oh, wow.
So this is Lady Command, and she's got wings and everything like the other figures, but hers go on her back, so she looks like she can fly. In Japan, there were 3 other cases. So one is the, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, the Moai, the Easter Island figures. So it looks like an Easter Island head. And then a Japanese Dogu, which are those, if you look it up, you'll recognize the little Japanese deity figure that's got these big round eyes.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of an oval head, and then the arms are crossed like this. So one of them came in a case like that. And like I said, they all, there were usually 4 versions, 4 different colors, 4 different names. We didn't get any of that stuff over here. And I just looked this up. The one I got on Amazon for Cleo back then was like 16 or 17 bucks. And if you try to find them now, you're looking at $50 even for the re-release stuff.
Oh, wow.
My days of collecting Micronauts or Microman are over.
It's so funny how that shift happens. I've seen it go in waves, so maybe at some point they'll go back down in price. I wonder what's causing the price to go up.
I guess this was still pretty close to when those re-releases happened. I mean, if you look on Amazon now, you're not even going to find these figures.
Right.
I believe they had all the color variations for that Lady Command figure, and they probably had the Time Travelers and the Pharoids and stuff as well. I just got that for her to go along with the ones I had. The line was immensely successful for Mego as well. I read in multiple places that it made up a third of their total profits.
Oh, wow.
For the time that they were selling them. But they both died out, both lines in Japan and in America pretty much died out in 1982. In America because Mego collapsed and went bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
And in Japan it was just, changing tastes. So they made numerous changes over the years to the Mikuroman line. I think it was in 83 they changed the name to Micro Change. And the figures were little cassettes and other everyday items that you could transform into a different figure. You getting where I'm going here?
Oh, yeah.
So this Micro Change line, along with another Japanese toy line by Takara called Diaclone, became Transformers.
Yep.
Like I mentioned at the beginning, it's similar to the Transformer story. Well, I mean, it comes from the same source, basically. And the Shogun Warrior story where someone goes over there, brings this over here, but it actually started here with G.I. Joe. That's the extra full circle aspect of these. I forgot to mention, I also think I had the baddie of the original Micronaut line. I always want to pronounce it Acroyear, because that's how it's spelled, but it's Acroyear. He was one of the Micronauts figures that was actually kind of transformable. You can't transform the Ferroid or the Time Traveler, but he came with wings and these spinny wheels, and his feet were like roller skates.
That's awesome.
And you could pop those things off and reconstruct them so that he was almost like a vehicle.
Oh, that's so
cool. I remember
cool.
having that one as well. None of those toys survived, unfortunately. Actually, I'm sure most of them broke when I had them as a kid.
Yeah.
They're O-ring assembled, so those things always break. And I've been watching Toy Polloi on YouTube.
Oh, God, I love Toy Polloi.
And he has fixed a lot of Microman and or Micronauts figures. They actually went to the UK via Mego. But they also had some of the early Cyborg, the Henshin Cyborg things, the smaller figure. They had those imported from somebody else. We never got the Cyborg figures here in the States. Those are also very expensive and have been re-released over the years, but they're really cool. So I went down that Toy Polloi rabbit hole, but also, like you mentioned, just looking at accounts on Instagram that collect the Microman figures. And if you see a group of them together, even the solid figures, forget the translucent ones, but there's like solid yellow and red and blue, and they're amazing looking together in collections.
Yeah.
I don't know how many sets or series they made, but look them up on Instagram or look up Microman commercials on YouTube, and their commercials are amazing too. They could kind of fudge things.
Yeah.
They utilize stop motion and all that and make it, it's not a kid going, hey, I could shoot a rocket. They make the thing do all the stuff it can do, which here you'd probably get in trouble for because you're misrepresenting the toy. Kind of. It can't actually fly through the air, so you can't show that.
Right.
So they've got them flying and shooting all these lasers and blasting stuff and drilling holes into mountains, and
that's so cool.
They're amazing. And that's the music, by the way, that will be opening the show is from one of their commercials, and it fucking rocks hard, man.
Yeah, you sent me that, and I was like, this is one of the greatest things I've heard all year.
It's like amazing prog rock.
Yeah,
instrumental
it's so
music.
Good. Yeah, inspiring. In fact, these are fantastic because I'd heard about Micronauts. And I'd seen images in the past, but it never really struck a chord with me. Now that you've planted that seed, these are so cool.
They're gorgeous little figures.
They're gorgeous figures, yeah, exactly. And what a brilliant concept and weird design choices. I love that stuff.
They've all got like little 70s hairdos.
Yeah, it's so cool.
It's great. Especially this Ferroid. He's got this almost mullet hair. It's kind of slicked back, and just the chrome faces and all that. They're really, really attractive figures. And the vehicles are really cool too. I saw Toy Polloi fix did he fix a hydrocopter? That was one of the toys that Mego had, and it, again, interchangeable, so you could constructed into a variety of toys, but it was a helicopter that, actually worked, but then it could go on the water and would move in the water.
That's so cool.
With batteries. Some of them had batteries. Some of them were like wind-up toys.
Yep.
Some of the cars were the pullback cars and really cool stuff.
I love it. How are you surviving with this itch? Are you investigating a few of them on eBay?
Yeah, I have one that I've saved. I guess I've been waiting for like an offer, and they haven't come from either of these two. The only one I'm really hoping to get is the Easter Island version of this in a solid red. It would have to be a reissue.
How about a Croyer?
Yeah, that figure doesn't really appeal to me anymore. It's really those, like some of the ones that I sent you where it's just a guy in a colorful suit, and maybe some of them had stickers, and they almost all generally have some kind of chest plate, but it's really just the color and the design of them that's appealing. Most of that stuff on eBay is $120 or more.
Yowza.
There ain't no way I'm doing that.
No, for a little piece of plastic.
and that's why I look at some of the guys that I follow now on Instagram that are taking pictures of 4 figures from the same series.
Yeah.
But they have dozens and dozens of those pictures of different series. And I realize that they're in Japan and they're much more, maybe not affordable, but available there in all of their vintage toy places. But I'm thinking, how much are you spending just on that one picture of 4 figures together? I don't got that kind of money.
No, and that's the thing. When you start following collectors on Instagram or wherever, YouTube even, and looking at their collections, it's pretty apparent the amount of money they're spending on things. And that can be shocking when you start calculating some of the prices and comparing it to stuff on eBay. But, those are dedicated collectors, and I'm sure they're partitioning off funds and sacrificing other expenses. It's an interesting decision to make.
They may be quite affordable there. I don't know. One of the Toy Polloi videos, he mentioned getting some figures from somebody. I mean, he goes to Tokyo and buys toys, but I think he got a few in trades or something. And I don't know how old the videos were. They may have been 5 or 6 or more years old.
Mm-hmm.
I know at one point when he converted the yen to pounds, I want to say he said 6 pounds and not 60. I rewinded it a couple times and I'm like, did he say 6 pounds? Because that's only like $12 for a figure.
Right.
That's really cheap. I believe that's what he said. And some of the other ones were not much more than that. Like I said, I don't know how old that video was, but I'm sure if you're there, they may be a dime a dozen.
Right.
Not here, though.
I'm really intrigued by what is so appealing about vac metal, chrome, action figures. And these are a good example of how that works so successfully. And I just think like the first time I saw a non-vac metal C-3PO, so that would be like 97, I think, when they came out with just sort of the gold plastic C-3PO in the Power of the Force line. I just remember feeling a sincere disappointment. That kind of paint application or whatever process they use to create the sort of the metal illusion is something that really is awesome. And when it's used, it's so special. There's a lot of controversy about Super 7 making their version of Silverhawks, and Silverhawks was a big mid-80s popular toy line. All those figures were vac metal, and they came out with non-vac metal Silverhawks. And I think that if anyone were to redo this line, they'd have to go with the vac metal because it looks so good against that translucent, bright color.
Yeah.
It's aesthetically very, very pleasing.
I think all of the heads on all of the different series of Mikuroman figures are chromed heads. I want to say all of them are.
That's so cool.
I mean, Hasbro's got the license, and obviously maybe this set didn't sell all that well. That was 7 years ago, and I don't think that they've released anything since then.
Well, I hope they do something with it, because that would be great to see how they move that into the contemporary toy market, what changes they'd make to it. Maybe there'll be 6-inch figures. I don't know. It would be really cool to see what they do. I hope they do something.
They probably won't. They've talked about doing a movie and TV shows and all that, and they've never panned out.
Oh, yeah.
I think it would be wildly different from not only the original Microman series, but even from Micronauts themselves.
Yeah.
But who knows? They've got a bunch of other toy properties set up to be made into movies, so...
Yeah, as all the Masters of the Universe fans are crying into their pillows because no movie can ever seem to get off the ground. With the Barbie movie being so successful, you never know. I feel like we might move into a new era. I could see the success of comic book movies transitioning over to a good run of successful toy movies. They just have to have the right people involved. And
well, Mattel has a bunch planned.
It's true.
Of some questionable properties, I might add. Like, how is that going to be a movie? But whatever.
This is the world of the Micronauts. A Croyer, the enemy, and the Micronaut Space Warriors, all sold separately. Space Glider, Galactic Warrior, Time Traveler, made to fit the Micronaut vehicles. Like the Photon Sled, you can stage make-believe battles against a Croyer. Like all Micronauts, a Croyer has interchangeable parts, so you can create your own toys. Micronauts, made of plastic and die-cast metal, each sold separately by Mego.
Do you love movies? So do I. What's up, y'all? It's KB, and I love movies, inviting you to listen to The Conversation, a film podcast where passion meets perspective and opinion. From the old school to the new, I invite a guest on to discuss the movies that thrill us, challenge us, break our hearts, or even blow our minds. There's always new episodes dropping wherever you get your podcasts. So join the conversation. We don't just watch movies. We love talking about them too. The Conversation with KB Loves Movies, a part of Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
If you're looking for more horror outside of the mainstream, look no further than Unsung Horrors, a podcast about underseen horror movies. I'm Lance.
And I'm Erica. Every other week, we'll cover a horror movie with fewer than 1,000 views on Letterboxd. We'll even give you double feature recommendations to pair with the movies we discuss.
From gothic to shot on video, from slashers to comedies, from giallo to J-horror, we'll cover all the subgenres. So join us as we unearth these hidden gems of horror.
Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, all at Unsung Horrors, available wherever you listen to podcasts. And part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
Speaking of forthcoming movies, the next thing I'm about to talk about, in doing my research, I found out that there were could potentially be some forthcoming projects from studios, but I doubt that they'll actually come to fruition. There is no good transition from what you're talking about to what I'm about to talk about.
There's no similarity here today.
No similarity, although I did see that there is an action figure of Vampira available now through Toony Terrors, which is very cool.
Well, and doesn't Super 7 have one?
Oh, yes, Super 7 has a reaction one. That's right. So that means I'm hoping that this sort of resurgence of interest in a personality like Vampira's might lead to some other things in regard to what I'm about to talk about.
So, Ronnie, what's your big item for episode 10?
10, can you believe it? This is airing in November. So right now I'm in the midst of my seasonal monster movie excitement. That never really leaves me, but I love the season for horror movies and horror icons, and it just so happens that it's also Bela Lugosi's birthday on October 20th, which just passed. Every once in a while, I return to Ed Wood.
My friend, can your heart stand the shocking facts about grave robbers from outer space?
Ever since the movie came out, the Tim Burton movie came out in 1994, I have a deep appreciation for this guy's body of work to a certain extent, and I'll get into that in a little bit.
Such as it is.
That's the way. Every once in a while, I'll get back into it. And what always triggers this is rewatching Bela Lugosi's Dracula And sometimes if I catch it or if I search it up online watching White Zombie, then I start thinking about Ed Wood again. When I saw the movie in 94, I knew what Plan 9 from Outer Space was. I do know that. And somehow, and I can't remember the exact parameters of this, but probably my dad, because I went to see the movie with him, and he had the cult movie book, or the Midnight movie book, and Plan 9 from Outer Space was in there, as well as all the other Ed Wood movies. But for some reason, I think it was seeing the Tor Johnson rubber mask in Starlog and Fangoria magazines. I recognized that as something that was familiar because I believe it was Tor Johnson's face in the image in that Midnight Movies book.
Probably, yeah.
It's so iconic. And so when the movie was announced, my dad and I sort of bonded on that and went to go see it probably right away, right when it came out. Because when we went to see it, there were quite a few people in the movie theater. Walking into that, I immediately thought, really?
Yeah.
This is interesting. Like, I didn't realize that there was such a significant audience for this stuff. I just thought it was something that I appreciated.
Especially for a black and white film.
Yeah, a black and white film.
Regardless of the content or even Johnny Depp being a pretty big name.
Yeah. I'm going to a theater. It was Festival Cinemas, back when Festival Cinemas existed.
Mm-hmm.
Over there, it's a car dealership now, or a used car dealership or something.
Yep. Saw many movies there.
Me too. I saw Godfather 3 there, and what a grand disappointment that was. Went to go see it, and surprised that there was such a huge crowd of Fresno people interested in seeing this movie. It was a blast. It was a great movie, and it was the first time I'd seen a Tim Burton movie without a Danny Elfman soundtrack and without the extreme Burton sort of aesthetic. He gets to showcase that in the spook house ride through that he goes on. But
a few Burton-esque creatures pop out of there.
He got to do his whole Burton thing there. I felt a deep level of respect for what Burton was doing with this story. It was one of my first moments of found out about the movie, so I started to do a bunch of research on Ed Wood and his movies, and I watched Plan 9 from Outer Space before the movie came out, and I was genuinely getting worried about Burton being too heavy-handed with it. And then when I saw the movie, I was really impressed. You and I were texting about this, and you made the joke, his last great effort, or something like that.
Yeah.
And I wrote back and I said, for both Depp and Burton. And you said, exactly, that was the joke.
Which his am I talking about?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I still feel that way. I mean, Depp has done some interesting things since then, and Burton has done a few interesting things since then. I don't want to discount everything that they've done after that, but I feel like that was it still is sort of the peak of their work together.
Sleepy Hollow was a good time, but it's not an Ed Wood. I really do think it's his last great movie because it's not that rampant Burton style combined with CGI. The Willy Wonka movie is a nightmare.
I can't even do that. If we ever, I'm sure Burton will come up in conversation again in the future because I went through a very deep, obsessed stage from when Beetlejuice came out. And I've already talked about him with the Batman 89 movie. When CGI entered Burton's realm, I feel like even though I love Mars Attacks, it does not serve his movies well, the CGI aspect. And Mars Attacks is a good one. With so much of that CGI, I accept it, but it's sort of a hard pill to swallow. And you're right, the Ed Wood movie feels like an Ed Wood movie in that there's a lot of, and I'm going to say this, and I know that there are some people out there that might feel differently about this, but Ed Wood's movies are his earlier films I have to be very careful about how I talk about this. His earlier films have a lot of love in them. There's a lot of passion. There's a lot of love in his urgency to be a filmmaker and to be the next Orson Welles. There's a lot of passion behind these movies. I feel like Burton emulated that successfully. Whether he felt that kind of passion or not about the Ed Wood story, I kind of feel like he did and does. That really translates quite well.
The connection for me is they both have a lot of heart. Those early Ed Wood movies and his Ed Wood movie have a lot of heart. Sugar-coated, the Ed Wood movie, the Burton movie, sugar-coated. We don't get into his troubles.
It stops
in the film
before it enters the dark territory.
Yeah, but I still think he even had some troubles early on, too. It's a goofy Ed Wood that's just all smiles and full of heart.
Yeah.
It makes sense because that's how he was approaching his films, so...
Yes. In fact, in rewatching, because I rewatched it in preparation for today's recording, and I'm realizing there are layers of sadness and hints at the alcoholism, Bela Lugosi's journey with addiction in the movie, all serve to sort of tell this true story of Ed Wood while emphasizing the camp that is sort of the frosting on the cake. I realize that the sadness of Bunny Breckenridge, too, that character played by Bill Murray, in his disappointing journey as well, it's all there in the movie. In rewatching it, when you watch it the first time or the second time or the third time even, you might just be focusing on the camp. All the hints are there that showcase is not the right word, that educate us about the demise to come and the demise of the folks involved. And what happened to me in my relationship with this sort of story was that I realized this is after I'd sort of gone through my horror movie obsession and interest in special effects makeup and all that stuff. But right in the middle of my feelings of excitement regarding the process of filmmaking and art making, it really struck a chord for me in this particular way. And that is, there's a scene in the movie, in the Ed Wood movie, where he's visiting his friend on the studio lot, who is the archivist of found footage or footage that is discarded. So the discards, and how Ed Wood would take those discards and use them later on as transitions between scenes, as explanations, the padding to bring in military scenes, to bring in atomic blasts, underwater sequences.
You're talking about the stock footage.
Stock footage is the phrase I was looking for.
Yes. Yeah.
The act of using that not as the way that Depp portrays the Ed Wood character in that particular scene is not like, oh yeah, that's something that I can use as a sort of last resort. It's an excitement to use it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I can already see a whole movie around this stock footage of buffalo and an octopus under the water.
Right.
That really resonated with me, and why I do feel that his early movies do have a lot of heart. They come from a place of, I'm gonna fucking do this no matter what, without any money, or scrounge up the change I can find, get the stuff out of the trash, so to speak, and make this thing.
As you're saying that, I'm thinking it's that cart before the horse mentality that still gets used mostly by low budget studios or producers or whatever, where, and I'm thinking of stuff in particular like New World Pictures or what's the company that Charles banned, but they would create a poster for a
poster
movie
first
and sell that and then have to make the movie. It's much the same as where, oh, here's some stock footage of an octopus that was shot for a nature documentary.
Yeah.
I can write a scene around that.
Yeah.
And even makes me think of David Lynch. His big thing is catching fish. You catch these ideas.
Yeah.
An ear in a field.
Yeah.
A guy spying on a woman in a closet.
Oh, yeah.
Those two ideas become Blue Velvet.
Yeah. Amazing.
Now, where he takes those ideas maybe lead to a little more interesting places than the octopus did for Ed Wood, but it's the same idea, and people still do stuff like that.
It's true. I mean, the artist who has an open mind to the happenstance and then uses that, mentioning Lynch again, the legendary story of the guy working on the set of Twin Peaks and is peeking from behind the bed, and there is Bob, right?
Right.
Lynch being willing to use that element, that happenstance moment, to create a plot point in the movie. The willingness to use the situation as it presents itself to your creative advantage is something that really resonated me about the work of Ed Wood, and made me appreciate, helped me understand why Tim Burton would make a movie about this guy. There is a whole other side to Ed Wood that I feel is deeply sad, and that is how he felt misunderstood. And I, as a high school kid, I felt misunderstood, so that resonated with me. We have very different stories, but the fact that he was kind of a figure out of place, out of time. And I think that if he existed today, he would probably feel a little more included or welcome, based on his feelings of needing to wear women's clothing and wanting to explore that side of himself, and feeling very excluded from, I'm putting in air quotes, society.
Or you can say quote unquote.
Oh yeah, quote unquote.
Again, as you're saying that, it's bringing another person into my head who had two people that had oddball troops around them who made a name for themselves in out places. John Waters and Andy Warhol.
Oh, totally.
His factory.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yet they converted it into something else. They converted those outlier feelings and outlier people into a successful, avant-garde, massive thing. Maybe not so massive for John Waters when he's making Pink Flamingos with these people, but he's had a long, sustained career. And Andy Warhol was the it guy for years and years and years, based on kind of the same feelings and surrounding himself with the same kind of people who society was rejecting.
And also appropriating from the world around them to create these things, this art. That's why I feel like Ed Wood, it's sad to me that he was born in 1924. If he had been born at a later time, perhaps he would have had a different experience. When we think about Andy Warhol, and his lifespan, and we think about Ed Wood and his lifespan, we're talking for Ed Wood, 1924 to 1978. That's not too far off from Warhol's lifespan. And that's where I feel like it really tells a lot about our societal perception of gender identity and expression through art and sexuality that has changed so much in such a short amount of time. And John Waters wouldn't probably, and he might agree with this, that he exists in part because of Ed Wood. And that territory was explored by Ed Wood previous to John Waters jumping in. It's a sad story, but it's also an exciting story too, that I feel like, thank goodness for people like Ed Wood. And there are more, we could go into the whole Roger Corman thing too. There are people out there that were pushing the boundaries and were taking chances and were making B movies because Roger Corman probably more so than Ed Wood wanted the money, but the creative act being the driving force behind all that stuff. Plan 9 from Outer Space, even though it's voted the worst film of all time, I feel that label needs to have a subtitle, and that is the worst film of all time, but also one of the most heartfelt films of all time. You feel in that movie a sense of love for Bela Lugosi, a love for science fiction, and a love for ghouls and ghosts and cemeteries, and
even just a love for doing the thing.
Exactly.
I think he loved making movies. Now, you could argue that all of those other people that were grouping with them, Waters, Warhol, and Corman, maybe had a touch more talent than Ed Wood.
Yeah, definitely.
That may be the only difference
that
between
is exactly it.
Success and his ultimate failure. I mean, he never succeeded at the thing that he was so determined to do.
And it's interesting, when I think about talent as a person who makes things, I look back on my body of work and I see things that are hit and miss. And I'm sure John Waters looks back on his body of work and he sees things that are hit and miss. And I'm not comparing myself to John Waters in any way, shape, or form, because the guy's a master. But I do know that talent is a difficult thing to pinpoint. because what might work for one might not work for another. And I'm talking about the person perceiving it or the audience that's engaged with it. Someone looks at a Jackson Pollock and might think their kid can make that painting, and someone looks at a Jackson Pollock and has a revelatory spiritual experience. How do we define talent? It gets really complicated. Ed Wood's talent, if he had one, was to identify an idea within the materials at hand and then execute it with balls. Glenn or Glenda is a spectacular movie because it's so gutsy and super weird and disjointed. I'm going to tell you this story using only these 5 elements. Like you have, and it's an admirable choice to make, and maybe the talent isn't in the quality or the execution, but in the guts to do it with the materials at hand. I think about his journey a lot. I don't want to spend too much time talking about his later years because he spiraled into alcoholism and pornography and couldn't escape that kind of trap. That's the saddest part. That the only way he could make money was or survive was to do what he was. There's no way to really justify it. He just made bad decisions. That is it's the sadness of Bela Lugosi's journey too. People make these decisions and they go down a path. You can blame the world, but really it comes down to that person making the bad decision themselves and then living with those decisions. I don't want to get depressing there, but when you think back at those early films, there's some exciting stuff there. Bride of the Monster and Plan 9 from Outer Space are 2 of my favorite movies because of their uniqueness. And that's a generous word, but there's a lot of heart in those movies.
I will say this, because you mentioned Plan 9 way back. I don't remember what we were talking about, that idea of it being the worst movie. I've seen much worse movies. I've seen much worse movies by Ed Wood himself. Orgy of the Dead is a slog.
Oh, it's horrible. It's impossible to get through. At least Plan 9, it might put you to sleep, but when you wake up from your brief nap, you're still interested in what you're seeing.
I always think of the scene in Burton's Ed Wood where he's constructed the cockpit as sort of the barometer for successful low-budget movies versus unsuccessful low-budget movies. I just watched a movie and talked about it for an episode of The Projection Booth called Walking the Edge with Robert Forster, low-budget movie, made in the 80s, so definitely more budget than Ed Wood ever saw in his life.
Right.
But at one point, Robert Forster is walking through a club, and there's people doing the tango on this little stage, and the wall behind them is obviously sheetrock. Knowing what you were going to be talking about this episode and watching that fairly recently, it just made me think of the cockpit set in that movie and how some people like Roger Corman hiring really talented people on a shoestring budget where you can construct sets out of styrofoam fast food packaging and make it look convincing.
Yeah.
Or you can construct a cockpit that doesn't resemble a cockpit in the least bit like Ed Wood did. I mentioned Lynch with Eraserhead and how all those sets were constructed on money from a newspaper route.
Yeah.
But you can't convince me that that's not Henry's studio apartment.
Yeah.
I don't watch that movie and go, that was constructed on this mansion in Beverly Hills and the stables there.
Right.
Obviously constructed on zero budget, but there's just something a little bit more there than that cockpit set or the use of stock footage. Not saying that makes Ed Wood stuff worse. It's just, I think for the time, that's the difference. Like, people recognize that maybe more than they would something that was constructed in much the same way for the same kind of budget, but had that level of talent or artistry to make it, to fool you into thinking it's the cockpit of a plane.
I think what hindered Ed Wood's talent was impatience, the need to just get it done as opposed to caring about how the scene was lit.
Right.
I mean, you can have some drywall, some sheetrock, and a couple of chairs and a framed picture.
Mm-hmm.
And it will look like
an office or
it all depends on how you light it and how much time you take to pay attention to how it's going to look on film. That's the difference, I think. Lynch can make anything look good. Here's an example. The third season of Twin Peaks. The charcoal Abraham Lincoln character that is wandering through, I forget which episode, maybe it's a couple of episodes. Episode 8. Anyone else without the Lynch eye would film that, and it would just look like a dude wearing a bunch of charcoal makeup and looking lame. It would just not work. But because he spends so much time with the lighting, with the details, with the sound, with the framing of the scene, it doesn't look like a guy in a costume. It has this otherworldly feeling. That's just one example.
You could take all the atrocious CGI in that season of... But then, and I think that's a case of, I don't know if it's on purpose or not, or if it was a budget thing, but then on that same episode 8, that atomic bomb explosion is masterful.
It's beautiful.
CGI.
You can just watch that on a loop and have it's like looking at great art that affects you in a particular way.
Because that was important to the story, that looked good. So I don't know if all the CGI budget went to that one scene or if the other stuff is bad on purpose.
Yeah.
You're watching a TV show. This is a construct.
Yeah.
Who cares what Matthew Lillard's blown off head looks like? Because it looks bad. There is no getting around it. There is some bad CGI in that season.
CGI is really the worst, isn't it? It really screws things up sometimes.
And that also might be the commentary. This is CGI. Why make it look good? I don't know. I don't know why it's bad.
Yeah.
But there is some awful CGI in that third season of Twin Peaks.
And it's funny because I feel like it's one of the best things he's done.
Oh, yeah.
And, you might be onto something. And maybe it is, here we are talking about Lynch. Maybe it is something he's conscientious of and doing on purpose. Try to get him to talk about it. No, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. No.
No.
Eraserhead is my most spiritual film. Elaborate on that.
No. God, I love David Lynch. Because of Ed Wood and because Tim Burton made that movie, I spent many years after that really spending a lot of time with B movies. I explored most of Roger Corman's early films. I tried to watch all of Ed Wood's movies. I'll always have an appreciation for a good B movie with a lot of heart because of Tim Burton inadvertently getting me interested in Ed Wood and his body of work. And I'll always have respect for the artist that is honest and puts a lot of heart into their work, even if it doesn't quite have the talent, quote unquote talent, that we expect from what we deem as high art or something that's aesthetically pleasing. I'd much rather watch Coven than the Twilight movie any day. Remember Coven?
I follow that guy on Twitter.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy.
It just makes me laugh that he chose to pronounce it as Coven.
That's how he pronounced it.
That whole part of that movie is just great.
I just love that
You say oven or oven?
He's like, so that's the kind of true to oneself attitude that I appreciate. Like, it is not Coven, it is Coven, because that's how he says it.
Yeah.
It's not pronounced any other way in his world.
If anybody's not familiar with what we're talking about, check out American Movie.
Yes.
It is a documentary about the making of a low-budget film called Coven.
That's right.
Or Coven. I want to pronounce it correctly.
That's right.
And it's an absolute delight of a film.
It is. It's a great documentary.
And watch it with the commentary, too. Watch it one straight through and then watch it with the commentary, because it's a whole other experience.
Yes,
it's
indeed.
like meta.
That's another thing, too. If Ed Wood were around today, if he were around during the era, not today, but during the era of commentary, when DVDs were first being released and special features were suddenly becoming a big draw for people to buy a movie, if he had been around to provide those commentaries, that would have been really interesting to hear his perspective on things because, again, we're just sort of interpreting.
And if he were in a state where he was capable of making commentaries, I think he would have to have been in a different...
Yeah, I have to pair that with the hope that he would go through some sort of recovery stage, but that just didn't happen.
You see? You see? Your stupid minds! Stupid! Stupid!
That's my obsession for this episode, but I do know that we have both chosen some locales to discuss. So what did you pick, Mark, for this portion of our program today?
Well, I picked this one, not because it's near and dear to both of us separately and together, but because of another place that I'll probably bring up on a different episode. Carlita and Cleo went to see the Taylor Swift film a couple weekends ago. Maybe it was last weekend. So I was on my own that evening, and I went to a different local place, and bought myself an individual chicken pot pie for dinner.
Oh.
That inspired Carlita to order Costco's chicken pot pie the next day, which is gigantic, and we, between the three of us, have for 2 nights because it's so huge. So I inspired her to do that. I inspired myself to think, hey, wait a minute. I need to add this location to my list. Grand Marie's Chicken Pie Shop.
Oh my gosh. Thank goodness. Thank goodness you chose this because, well, first, I'm surprised I didn't think of it. I was like, I wonder if we're going to pick the same thing today. And I'm glad that we didn't. I'm so glad you chose it because you and I have a very wonderful relationship with this particular restaurant, quote unquote restaurant, more of an iconic staple of the Fresno area that is no longer around.
Yep.
So sad it's gone. But take it away.
I didn't do any research or anything, just to find out when it started, and that was in 1956, so it lasted for 63 years. They closed in 2019.
Yep.
I don't think I actually went there, though, until I lived in the Tower District,
right,
mid-90s. And I think that if I were to tally it up, I went there the most with you.
Yeah, me too.
I don't know that the first time I went there was with you or not. Probably predated us meeting. I think I always just assumed it was a dump and that it probably didn't have very good food.
Mm-hmm.
Even back then, the exterior was not ever really well kept all that much. There was always a part of the original sign that was missing. And, the Tower District can be sketchy. Not that it doesn't have good eating establishments. It always has. Once I did, though, I had the thought, boy, I should have come here much sooner.
Yes.
And it was usually for breakfast. It was one of those hangover cure establishments where you could get a big old greasy plate of breakfast food to get your energy back, settle your stomach. Although I guess for some people that might not settle your stomach, but it was mostly a breakfast place. And I know that early on I would get one of the egg platters, 2 eggs over medium, hash browns. I think I started off getting linguiça because they had it as an option, and I love linguiça.
Oh yeah. I always got linguiça and eggs from there. Always.
Always a side of biscuits and gravy.
Yeah.
Why would you get toast if you can get biscuits and gravy for the same price? Why would you get toast?
100% on board with you there.
And a cup of endless coffee.
We're going to talk about that gravy in just a little bit. You brought up the chicken pot pies is what they were known for. They were delicious, but they took me aback visually because of the fluorescent yellow gravy that they used that they did not use on their biscuits. It was a different gravy.
Right. Although you probably could use that gravy on biscuits and gravy. But biscuits and gravy is generally a sausage gravy.
Yes, exactly.
Which is what they did.
Yeah. What's really fantastic about that restaurant, what was fantastic and what kept us going back was not only the reliability of a greasy breakfast, but also the interiors never changed.
Yeah.
They never updated the old vinyl seats. They never updated the wall decorations.
Which was apparent by the layers of dust on it.
Absolutely. They didn't really clean anything above the floor. So, and there was very high ceilings, and the ceiling...
Other than the tables. I mean, they cleaned the tables.
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah. I guess anything above the seats. How about that? Anything above the tops of the seats. But the floors were always polished and clean, even though the tile was ancient.
Yeah, it was an old place, so it looked probably dirtier than it actually was, just from years of foot traffic and
absolutely
rubbing the countertops. And it was just an open space. And like you said, large ceilings, so you could see the kitchen. It had a horseshoe bar type area where people, the old guys would sit, bunch of booths, few tables. Generally would sit at a booth. Green, 2 shades of green or green and brown, embroidered vinyl booth seating. The logo inside was the same as outside, and it was, again, missing letters, and I think a piece of the chicken's back feathers were broken off. How do you replace that stuff? Over the years, multiple times would threaten to close and would always get resurrected, and or somebody would buy it up and keep it open. And I think that was the hope for this last bid, and it just didn't happen. Yeah, we went there a lot before and after you left, either to LA or New York. Would meet there when we started hanging out and doing the movie watching and all that stuff. I don't think I had a chicken pot pie until just a few years probably before they closed. I would always get the breakfast stuff.
Yeah. And I only had it, I think, twice.
Yeah, I only had it a couple times too. It was good.
Yeah.
But I usually got breakfast. I know my mom would go when some of our family from Oregon came. They would go and buy their biscuits there for dinners, and they were delicious too. I mean, we had those with the breakfasts.
Yes, always breakfast, or 90% of the time breakfast. Even though they were known for it, it was always for me, it was always the sort of like looking at it and thinking, that doesn't really look that appetizing, but there must be some magic there. And there was.
Yeah, they were good.
They were good. And they were legendary. I'm going to go back a little bit too. Part of the legend of this place too, for me, because I went there once as a kid with family, but didn't go until I started going there with you. So there was this long period of time that I didn't indulge. When I was in high school and I was discovering poetry, discovering Charles Bukowski, but I was also discovering the Central Valley poets. Junior in high school, senior in high school, really dove in deep with the work of Philip Levine and some other people that Chuck Moulton and Luis Omar Salinas used to hang out in the Tower District. So seeing them was like seeing, for those of you that have no idea who I'm talking about, those two were local, pretty special local poets. And then Philip Levine went on to become a poet laureate of the United States. But he was also sort of the voice of the Central Valley, but also Detroit, where he grew up. So Detroit and the Central Valley. I would hear stories of them all hanging out at the chicken pie shop at those U-shaped booths and talking about poetry. And for a kid who's just coming off of discovering who the beatniks were and discovering Charles Bukowski and Pablo Neruda and the exciting world of poets, I was just super intrigued. It's a little sad to me when I think about places that are designated as of historical significance in the Central Valley and how that place just sort of disappeared. It was an exciting and unique place. David Lynch would have definitely put it in a movie if he knew about it.
It could have played Winkies in Mulholland Drive.
Oh my gosh. Yes, absolutely. In fact, the dumpster person was constantly behind the chicken pie shop.
Yes. There was a creepy little back area between that and the post office, for sure.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I hated walking by at night.
Oh, goodness gracious. Yeah. Those areas are still like that.
Oh, yeah.
Very cool.
I hope that I never see that face ever outside of a dream.
The place I chose has less of a significance in that kind of way, but it was more of a mystery to me as a kid. And that is because we didn't go there. That is Blackbeard's Family Fun Center, or Family Entertainment Center as it's called now. I didn't end up going to Blackbeard's until much later on in my 20s to play miniature golf. I don't know if you ever went with me. Did we go?
I don't think so.
I only went like twice. But when I was a kid, so that's the least important part. I will always have a deep love and appreciation for miniature golf courses because I love constructed facades and miniaturized environments. And I just love the idea of miniature golf. Blackbeard's Family Fun Center was an arcade. It was a miniature golf course. They had like bumper cars. They still have these things, bumper cars and mini race cars and a batting cage. And they were known mainly for the miniature golf, but also for their water slides. I've never gone on the water slides there, but when I was a kid, my stepsisters told me about their experience going to Blackbeard's and going on the water slides. And they described their experience as sliding down the slide into they described it as like a cave. Inside the cave, under the water, where the water slide lets you out and you splashed into the water. Underneath the water at the bottom of the pool was Blackbeard.
Huh.
I had this image in my head growing up that this was this Pirates of the Caribbean type of experience right here in Fresno. And it wasn't until later on when I investigated images that I saw that it's just a painting of the Blackbeard's logo at the bottom of this dinky little pool. I was deeply fascinated by it. You could drive by it. In going into Clovis, I would drive by it when I was working at the movie theater out there in Clovis. Every time I would drive out to work, I'd drive by and I would just be fascinated by the goings on in there. It's sort of fallen apart, I guess, over the years. I don't know what it's like now, but I've been wanting to go back and play mini golf with the family, but I'm hesitant to do so because I'm not sure exactly if it's great anymore. The times that I've been there to play mini golf, it's very cool. It's one of those strange places that's still around. Don't look up, I learned that you shouldn't look up the opening date online because apparently, according to the only information I could find online, is that it opened in 1914. I highly doubt. It seems more logical that that's a typo and then maybe it was 1974.
That sounds right to me.
Because it definitely has, the arcade has a 70s feel.
Yeah.
You know, mini golf, I think, probably started in the 50s in America and sort of died off in the 80s. I don't know the history of mini golf in America, but maybe I should learn that because it's super interesting.
Well, maybe don't present things as facts on here that you don't actually know.
Exactly.
It could have started in the
30s,
1800s.
Now that's interesting. Yeah, that would be very cool if it did. I do have fondness for Blackbeard's Family Fun Center because of that. Those years spent imagining it to be a greater place than it really was.
Well, I can tell you, I went there numerous times as a kid. Much like Pizza and Pipes, it was where you had your birthday.
Yes.
I probably had one there myself. I don't know, but I know I went dozens of times. I don't think I ever went on their water slides. I know I played in the arcade. I know I played miniature golf. And I think I might have done the bumper cars.
Mm-hmm.
As I've mentioned on the show before, video games were not really my thing. So I spent most of my time playing air hockey.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
Which I was capable of doing fairly decently.
Were you a pinball guy?
Not really, but more so than video games.
Mm-hmm.
Was a little more adept at that than video games. Was never good at video games, and it seemed like a waste of money to me. Do something that you're not very good at.
I was never good at video games either. I love pinball because it's that same thing that miniature golf has, which is miniaturized environment that you're interacting with, and it's all three-dimensional, and it's built by somebody. Our mutual friend Wade, he's an expert pinball, what do we call it, pinball artist.
He makes the wood for the well, what's the term? I don't want to say panels, but I'll just say panels for now. He makes those, screen prints them, and does the die cutting for, you know, all the slots and stuff. He doesn't construct the machines themselves, I don't believe.
Yeah.
If you have a pinball machine and it needs to be refurbished, he's your guy.
Amazing stuff. I just love seeing things that look like they were made by hand. Video games just don't have that appeal to me. But I can appreciate the artistry behind making those digital images interact with you. That's what I chose for my locale for today, is Blackbeard's. And for those of you that are traveling through the Fresno area, you can't go to Chicken Pie Shop anymore, but you can certainly stop off at Blackbeard's, though I can't guarantee you'll enjoy yourselves.
I haven't been in decades.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it.
Yes.
Where can people find you, Mark?
They can find me on social media at Wake Up Heavy on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. I don't post much on Facebook. Letterboxd if you want to see what I'm watching. And you can find this show and my other show, Wake Up Heavy, on weirdingwaymedia.com or at wakeupheavy.com, or listen wherever you get your podcasts. And I think that's about it. I've got, let's see, this is going to be out in November, so I should have a couple episodes out. One on the Chevy Chase Goldie Hawn film Foul Play from 1978, and another on Bob Balaban's black comedy Parents.
Oh my God, one of my favorites.
I'm kind of doing a little cannibal theme here. I did a little short episode on Motel Hell recently.
And I love it.
Parents is also about cannibals, and then this great German film called Der Fan from 1982.
Oh, yeah.
I think I'm going to do a little spotlight episode on. So that'll probably all be out in November.
Fantastic. I love it. Parents is one of my favorite dark comedies of all time. I rewatched it about 2 years ago, and it is so good. And it's definitely
watch it today with Cleo.
Nice. Oh, gosh. And Motel Hell is great, too. Yeah. Props to talking about that one.
Not my favorite, but it's an interesting film with an interesting backstory. So, figured, why not? Why not talk about something I don't particularly like for once instead of things I do like?
Speaking of movies that are low budget but also lit really well, if I remember correctly, Motel Hell is spectacular to look at. Yeah, it's a good looking movie. You can find me under the moniker Skelevator on Instagram and on YouTube. My artwork and stuff is on Instagram under Ronald Zarigian _projects. On YouTube, do a show called Toy Frenzy on Thursday evenings. My buddies over there, we end up talking about Masters of the Universe pretty much every time, even though it's called Toy Frenzy. That's a lot of fun. Not only should you check out our previous episodes if you're a first-time listener, but definitely head over to Weirding Way and listen to all those podcasts because they are all fantastic. Good stuff. Sometimes on Sundays I do Weekly Weirdo, and Mark has guested on there a couple of times, talk about a toy from the collection and my experience with that, or my history with that particular toy. That's pretty much it. This was fun.
Yeah, good stuff. I can't remember the outro we created last time.
I have it right here. I have it right here.
Say it, damn it.
I wrote it down because I was like, I gotta, this was so good. Mark came up with it. It's masterful. Until we meet again in December, have fun, stay weird, and keep collecting.
There you go. Thanks for listening.
You see? Your stupid minds. Stupid!